Hello everybody, my name is Omega Pro, and today we're going to be discussing the topic of video games as an art form. It's very easy to consider this video, as well as the opinion that video games are an art form, to be biased. We are, after all, gamers. It's no question that we would think so highly of them as to consider them art. However, regardless of what we think of video games, there's always a generalization out there that dictates they are nothing more than just a simple hobby. So what exactly makes it just a hobby and not exactly art? Sure, the act of playing video games is not an art, just like looking at a picture or watching a film or reading a book is not an art. It is what's being consumed that is the real art. Art is verbatim defined as the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as a painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. At least that's a definition from our Google overlords. Then that begs the question, can art be defined or is it just up to perception? For example, say I draw this circle with some lines through it. Is that art? I mean, technically I am expressing my creative skill and imagination. Sure, it's not Mona Lisa, but by definition, it is art. I think at its simplest form, art can be defined as just creative output. This means to any degree. If I spend 3 hours to paint a tree, and you spend 3 hours painting a lush forest, does that diminish my art? Of course not. It's not really the quality of what is getting put out, but the fact that it was put out in the first place. What does this have to do with anything? Well, I'm attempting to draw parallels for the people that are against video games being an art. I realize this attempt is futile among my audience, seeing as though we probably share the same opinion. However, I just felt it was necessary. Let's look at video games versus the other popular art forms: music, video, drawing / paintings, and books. What do the popular art forms have in common that video games don't? They are consumed rather than being impacted by the consumer's input. In essence, the difference is that video games are interactive while the others are not. In a video game, you take direct control of the protagonist, whereas in other media, you simply witness the protagonist. Based on that alone, it's easy to dismiss video games from the art form category simply because it just doesn't match up with the other art forms. They have similarities like plot, character development, dialogue, etc., but that does not make them the same. Just like cats have 4 legs, a tail, eyes, and ears, but that doesn't make them a dog. What I'm trying to say is that from the other point of view, video games simply do not match up to their definition of art, to which I have to counter with, can that definition evolve? Let's take a look at games like Gone Home and Telltale's The Walking Dead. I'm going to borrow the Google overlords again really quickly just to see their definition of a video game. A game played by electronically manipulating images produced by a computer program on a television screen or other display screen. It's safe to assume that this defines video games at the very least at the lowest possible level. To some people, video games mean different things. Some people prefer fluid game mechanics over characters and story, whereas others prefer it the other way around. Regardless of what you prefer in a video game, I think to be a fully fledged video game, you must incorporate both, at least to the simplest degree. Let's take a look at Gone Home, for example. In the game, you walk around a house trying to find out exactly what happened to everybody you knew while you were on a trip. Those are your mechanics, barely present, only there to make you feel the game's atmosphere. Now imagine if Gone Home weren't a game. Instead, it was a movie. Its charm and appeal would be lost because you're not the one navigating the house and finding the clues, piecing everything together. The game's story and atmosphere are what makes that game great. The lack of controls don't really matter because what matters is mastered to near perfection. Now let's visit the flip side, Titanfall. This game knows exactly what it is. It knows that it's a multiplayer action shooter and thus removes the campaign mode from the game. It relies heavily on its gameplay and design, which is amazing, by the way. They don't completely abandon the story, however. After all, you need a reason to board titans and slay massive amounts of enemies. Does the reason have to be necessarily good? No way. I would take any excuse to be able to play as an acrobatic pilot who can man a giant mech, and that is simply the appeal of the game. What's my point with all of this? Look at the drastic differences between Gone Home and Titanfall, yet they fall into the same category. When games were first released, all we had was Pong, and that was the definition of a video game. However, along came Pac-Man, then Mario, then Sonic, all the way up to games like BioShock and Call of Duty. My point being, the definition of video games has changed so much throughout the years. They have evolved so immensely into what some consider the best form of media possible. So if video games have evolved, why can't art?